It is our job to decide whether or not it is appropriate for a 3-year-old's life, for a 5-year-old's life, for even for a 15-year-old's life to be documented, to be put online for everyone to see. It's a decision that should be based on the future of your child's well-being, on their psychological well-being. So family vlogging, I've talked about this a little bit, most notably in the second video I made on Ellen Fisher. It was a response to Ellen's comments on my original video. And it's like several minutes somewhere within the video. So a few of you said that you wanted me to do a dedicated video, a little bit more in depth. So that's what we are doing here. I'm going to start with several clarifications, like 5 clarifications. Sorry. Okay, so the first one, having kids in videos, like having your kid or whatever periodically in videos is not at all what I'm talking about. I think that's pretty obvious, right? I'm talking about a family channel, family vlogging, a channel that is dedicated to showing the family, showing the children, right? So it's channels where if you remove the family aspect, if you remove the children, if you stopped having the kids in videos, it would be a completely different channel and it would probably suffer financially because that's what people are coming to the channel to see. They're coming to see the kids and to see their lives. I'm also not talking about channels that are just discussing parenting. I think that's really, really important, actually. I talk about parenting and, birth story, particularly as a vegan and feeding my kid vegan, all that kind of stuff on my channel fairly frequently. I do think that's really important, particularly for vegans or anyone who's living, maybe a little bit differently, right? But it needs to be done in a way that respects your child's privacy. Second clarification, I'm not saying that you're a bad person if you watch family vlogging. I mean, if you're watching like the totally inappropriate stuff, like the daily vlogs and the, super clickbaity stuff, I don't know, you might be a bad person. But I don't think most family channels are like that. And I think the reason that most people watch those channels is just because they like the people, and they like learning about their lives and their kids' lives. And that's really it. I'm just here to share my perspective on that sort of content and why it makes me feel icky, right? Like I'm not talking about the obvious, like daddy of 5 stuff, right? I'm not talking about the obviously abusive or just irresponsible, inappropriate family stuff. I'm talking about your, more normal family vlogs that I think to the average person seem okay. That's what I'm talking about when I say I never watch those stuff. I mean, obviously I don't watch the abusive stuff either, but that's obvious. I'm talking about the normal stuff, why, from my perspective, it's problematic, I guess, and just makes me feel really gross. Third clarification, I do actually watch this content. I know the title of this is probably going to be why I never watch family vloggers. I do actually watch it, but for work. If you're familiar with my channel, you see that I've done videos about specifically vegan family channels like Ellen Fisher and Shine with Plants. I'm talking about like what they eat and what they're feeding their kids. So obviously I'm watching a lot of their content, but again, that's for work. I'm not watching any of these channels in my free time. Fourth clarification, this whole video is coming from someone who doesn't even state like her kids' names in videos or even their genders. So like if there were a spectrum of, sharing stuff about your kids online, family vlogging would be on one end and me and my partner, we would be on the complete opposite end. I've done my best to kind of correct for that here. Again, I have no problem with people who are just kind of, showing their kids occasionally on their channel, even though that's not something that, I would do. But I'm probably still more biased towards privacy than the average person. So just keep that in mind. Fifth and final, I'm going to use the word exploitation in this video. By exploitation, I mean essentially this definition: the action of treating someone unfairly in order to benefit from their work. This is different from how some vegans use the word exploitation, essentially equating it with use. So like use is abuse. I don't agree with that. I do not think that using a person, an animal, any sort of sentient creature is inherently immoral. I think it depends on the context. It depends on the consequences. Adopting an animal for companionship, so essentially using that animal, right? You are gaining something from that animal, is not inherently problematic as long as that animal is being treated well, right? So both parties are benefiting. You are getting some companionship. The animal, the dog, let's say, is getting a nice home and like a new friend. I don't know if you've been around dogs, but they kind of like us. Cats, it's iffy. Having a child, another example, having a kid because you have a strong desire to have a kid is not inherently problematic as long as you are, again, like treating them well, right? And like not living vicariously through them. Unfortunately, I think we've all known parents like that. Exploitation or lack thereof also does not inherently involve consent. This is another thing that some vegans believe, that if there is no consent, that it is inherently exploitation, inherently immoral. Obviously, this makes any use of animals, even just adopting a pet, exploitative and immoral. Having children, also exploitative. I have 2 kids and pretty sure we're gonna adopt a dog sometime in the future, so yeah, obviously I don't agree. My point here is that my problem with family vlogging has nothing to do with use and has nothing to do with consent, at least when it comes to like very young kids. My problem with family vlogging has to do with that definition of exploitation that I shared earlier, with the potential for exploitation to occur, for the potential for parents to treat their children unfairly for their own benefit. So for either financial gain, for fame. So what do I mean when I say parents treating their children unfairly? Well, on the extreme side of things, obviously we have like literal abuse, Daddy of 5 being the obvious example. The vast majority of channels aren't doing anything like this. If they were, we would know about it by now. But what about behind the scenes? What about, pressuring kids into being in videos, or even abusing them or threatening abuse if they don't want to be in a video? I'm not saying this is typical either, but I can't possibly know for sure. And maybe most parents aren't like abusing their kids or chastising their kids for not being in a video or for like performing badly or something like that. But what about rewards? But what about rewarding them if they will be in a video or if they will act happy in a video? I wouldn't be surprised if this were at least a little bit common, and it makes me incredibly uncomfortable. We're not talking about like rewarding kids with dessert for like finishing their broccoli, right? Something that's obviously good for them. We're talking about rewarding them for doing something that benefits the parents, that makes the parents money. I'm not accusing any channel of anything here because, again, I can't possibly know for sure. Which is kind of the point. I don't know for sure. I can't know for sure what's going on with these families behind the scenes, and it makes me incredibly uncomfortable as a potential consumer. Again, speaking of that video that I made responding to Ellen Fisher, to me, it is like someone who says, oh, I eat ethical eggs or ethical milk or whatever because the farmer said so. The farmer says that they're happy and healthy. But unless you live on the farm, unless you see how those animals are treated day in and day out, you cannot possibly know that for sure. To me, watching family channels like yours would be like purchasing eggs from someone with, a rescued hen in their backyard. Maybe the hen seems really happy and healthy, but how can I possibly know unless I live there? And once money is involved, again, I am purchasing these eggs, the potential for exploitation, for cutting corners will always be there. It's just not worth the risk to me. Remember, these kids are not considered actors, at least for now, and I'm sure this is going to change, but current day, like when I'm recording this video, these kids don't have any of the same protections that child actors have. I think that alone should give someone pause before watching this type of content. I think there is a big difference between a child acting and a child like living their life on YouTube. In the case of movies, the kid is playing a character. There is a big difference between reciting lines, again, playing a character, and giving strangers a voyeuristic glimpse into their personal lives and personal memories. I would imagine that the former is probably a lot easier to dissociate from than the latter. But let's pretend that all of the family vlogging is fine. All of the behind the scenes is totally fine. There's no abuse. There's no pressure to perform. All of the kids love it. They love making the videos. Okay, what about when they get older? Maybe those hours and hours and hours of content start to weigh on them. Maybe kids at school are bringing personal things up from like 5 years ago because it's in a video that has millions of views. They're talking about your house because they know what it looks like. They haven't even been there, but they've seen the house tour on YouTube. Maybe the kid gets older and, I don't know, tries to get a job. Maybe it's not so beneficial for a potential employer to have mountains upon mountains of information about you just at their fingertips. All they have to do is search your name. And maybe they find, I don't know, that you're Mormon. Or maybe your father was a convicted felon. Or maybe you're vegan. Or I don't know, maybe you're trans. Maybe I missed a memo, but I'm pretty sure employers haven't become unbiased and totally rational and not bigoted at all when it comes to their hiring practices. When I said that I don't care about consent, I really meant it. I do not give a shit if your 3-year-old comes to you and says, "Hey, mommy, I would love to be in a video." He is 3. Just like I don't care if my 3-year-old comes to me and says, "Hey, mommy, it's cookie day. We're having cookies all day today." Like, in case you haven't heard, children are children. They have tiny brains, they are extremely irrational, and they don't know what's good for them. It is our job to protect them. It is our job to decide whether or not it is appropriate for a 3-year-old's life, for a 5-year-old's life, for even for a 15-year-old's life to be documented, to be put online for everyone to see. It's the decision that should be based not on how much money we will make, even if you try to convince yourself, well, look how much we're making. I can support my family and give them everything they've ever wanted. It's a decision that should be based on the future of your child's well-being, on their psychological well-being. If you haven't already read this article from The Atlantic, I highly recommend it. It's about kids finding out via Googling their names that they already have an online presence because their parents have posted stuff about them or their schools have posted stuff about them. Some of the kids are cool with it. They love it even. Others, not so much. No matter what you do, it's out there for people to know. Even if you're just swimming, the rest of the world will know. My meet records are out there. Now people know I'm a swimmer. The internet tells you where all the swim meets are, so that would probably tell my general location. It tells you my school. Parts of my story online were in Spanish. Now people know I speak Spanish. And in case you think I'm being a little bit dramatic about parents potentially benefiting themselves at the expense of their child's well-being, well, check out this quote from a mother who refused to stop writing about her teenager after the kid asked her not to because it would mean, quote, shutting down a vital part of myself, which isn't necessarily good for me or her. Keep telling yourself that. Someone brought up in the past that family vlogging could allow parents to spend more time with their children, assuming that they aren't vlogging like every day or even just most days, which I think is pretty much inherently bad. Assuming they're not doing that, then yeah, they're probably going to be working less than they would at like a normal job. This can allow parents, typically dads, let's be real, a lot more time with their kids. And presumably this would be a good thing for the kids, right? And money. I mean, ideally, a large portion of that money would end up in some sort of trust fund, but I mean, who knows? Who knows how often that's really happening? And even if it's not happening, a fair number of these channels are making pretty good money, and I would bet that at least some of it is going to the kids in the form of lots of toys and like candy and shit. Now, whether or not spending vast amounts of wealth on like a couple of kids in the form of toys and candy is actually a good thing is a bit debatable. I mean, it's not debatable at all. It's absolutely bad. No one needs that much money. And more kids growing up getting everything they ever wanted maybe isn't super positive for society on the whole. But anyway, the question is, do the pros outweigh the cons? When it comes to family vlogging, do the benefits outweigh the negatives? I'll just stick with pros and cons. Do the pros outweigh the cons? There's no way to know, at least for now. There's no data on family vlogging. There's no real data on how the kids feel about it, on how they feel when they've grown up. Again, like that article I linked to earlier, number one, it's all anecdotes. It's just stories from different kids. But also, they're not talking about family vlogging, right? They're just talking about like regular, families and parents just uploading like pictures and stuff of their kids, right? They're not These kids aren't coming from YouTubers. This is all just way too new, right? So we as consumers kind of have to use our better judgment, that we have to do the best we can with the little information that we have. To me, given what we do know, what we know about people's desire for privacy, what it feels like, how awful it feels to have your privacy invaded, articles like this where at least some of the kids are upset that just their name and face are out there, right? Again, we're not talking about family vlogging, but just like, your meat records for swimming. Instances where parents did indeed abuse their kids for views, the potential for employers to discriminate against people based on their beliefs that they found out because there's a million videos out there, right, about this person. Given all of that, I cannot, in good conscience, support family vlogging. And it's also coming from a personal place. I mean, I know the only thing I really know is myself. And even that, sometimes I don't know that well. But I know that I personally would hate it. I would absolutely despise having all of that information out there. Now, that is coming from someone who did not grow up in a family vlogging situation, right? So maybe if I'd grown up like that, I would actually love it because I'd be presumably a fairly different person than I am today, having not grown up like that. But given who I am today, I know that I would absolutely hate that if all of that were just out there and I had no control over it. I mean, to be honest, this is the part that I dislike about being on YouTube, is being so exposed, right? But in this case, at least I'm the one who's doing the exposing, right? Like, I have control over what I share. How many of these kids are going to grow up and feel the same way and just hate all of this attention that's on them and all of this information about them that's out there? Again, we don't have any data, but it's virtually guaranteed that at least some of them will. The possibility that a kid would grow up to resent their childhood, even to resent their parents, is enough on its own to keep me completely away from family vlogging. Anytime I make a video about one of these channels, it's all I can think about. Like, what are these kids going to think when they grow up? I hope they love it. Obviously, this is a vegan channel, so I would be remiss to dismiss animal vlogging or, pet vlogging, these sort of, pet-centered channels. I guess pet vlogging, I don't know, what do you call it? Obviously, when it comes to pets, there is one major difference. A dog is not going to grow up to resent all of the videos about, little, I can't even think of one dog, Fluffy. I don't know. What's a dog name? So pathetic. I could not think of one dog name. I came up with Fluffy. Obviously, a dog is not going to grow up and be like, oh my God, I can't believe there are all these videos of me on the internet. No, dogs are going to make fun of them at the dog park for the training, the house training video with the puppy pads or whatever, right? I mean, so obviously this makes a big difference, and I think it limits the amount of harm that can occur. But that doesn't mean that there isn't potential for exploitation when it comes to sort of pet vlogging channels that are focused on, someone's pets. The potential that someone will take on more pets than they can realistically care for in order to be able to make more videos and make more money, or to force their pets to sit still or to perform for the camera. I mean, we just saw with the YouTuber Brooke House, whatever her name was, clearly this side of the internet is not immune to exploitation and cruelty. So I do feel uncomfortable with these sorts of channels. I do think there's a possible exception, and that is the hamster YouTube community, if you're familiar. The state of small animal care, at least in this country, is pretty abysmal. Look at the shit that Petco and PetSmart sell as habitats for these creatures, as cages for these creatures. They are just tiny and, oh God. You can find videos of people who know a lot more about small animals than I do, explaining exactly why these are so horrible. My point is that it's no wonder that people just have no idea how to care for them. They put them in a little cage, they take them out every once in a while. They're basically like little figurines. But these guys, these hamsters, oh my God, they look like they are living the life. I don't expect there to be any sort of pressure for them to perform like with a dog, because it's a fucking hamster, and I don't think anyone watching is expecting them to do anything other than to just walk around and get their little treats and just be cute. And there are also tons of videos like this one, showing these awesome enclosures, again, kind of giving people a different perspective on these animals, and that, hey, maybe a cage that's this big isn't appropriate. Now, there is still room for exploitation, maybe, I don't know, I can imagine someone making a hamster perform during the day because it's more convenient for them. Obviously, hamsters are nocturnal, so that would be not really cool. Maybe buying another hamster when the previous star dies, which did happen just recently with Vanilla Ham Ham. Vanilla died and she replaced it with Butterscotch. Maybe that's fine, assuming that she adopted and didn't actually buy one. And again, these hamsters do look to be well cared for and a lot more engaged than your average hamster. But I don't know, it when I saw that video that like, hey, Vanilla died, here's a new hamster, it made me a little bit uncomfortable. Another kind of negative, these videos could encourage more people to go out and to buy hamsters. I know I said adopt, and that is possible, but let's be real. If you're going to get a hamster, you're probably getting one from Petco or PetSmart or wherever. You're probably buying one and in the process supporting these effing terrible corporations. But I feel like these videos are a net positive, having experienced the way that people care for these animals firsthand, seeing such a drastic difference, in these videos, it just seems like it would be a really positive thing for people to see, and just the amount of care that goes into it. The videos where they're making little cakes for them and like a little sandbox and with popsicle sticks, and it obviously takes so much time. I think it just, I don't know, it makes me feel good watching the videos, and so I feel like they're a good thing. I'm just being honest here. That's really mostly what I'm going on here. Is just like, this feels good, because again, we don't have like data on this or anything. So that's kind of the one exception for us. That's the one sort of pet focused thing that we watch. Other than that, we don't watch like pet focused channels. Now, the more astute among you may be saying, wait, aren't you a fan of Jenna Marbles? Doesn't she have like a ton of videos focused on her dogs? Yes, but I personally have, and I don't think it's controversial at all, I have no doubt that her channel would be absolutely fine if she never put up another video with one of her dogs ever again. Even if she just never showed them again, I'm sure her channel would be fine. If you look at her non-dog content, it does just as well, if not better, than the videos with her dogs. I personally don't watch Jenna for Marbles and Peach and Kermit and Bunny. I'm here for makeup tutorials and makeovers, not dog trains. I'm sorry. My point being, I don't think that she feels pressured, to put her dogs in videos. Obviously, I'm biased. Obviously, I'm a big fan, so take everything I'm saying, with a grain of salt. But, look, I have canceled channels in the past, channels that I really loved for, like, usually saying something that was just like, no, there's no going back from that, and I haven't watched their stuff since. So if I really did feel that way about Jenna, if I really thought that like this is possibly exploitative, I would not watch her stuff anymore. I've done it before. I'm sure I'll do it again. Returning to family vlogging, these channels could actually take a big hit in the coming months due to YouTube's new policy regarding children's content. The big change being that they are going to stop showing personalized ads on children's content. Now, it seems like they're really going after videos that are obviously for kids, like toy videos, stuff like that, not really vlogging. In fact, some of these channels are pivoting to vlogging, suggesting that the demographic for these videos is older, right? Either older kids or even adults, specifically older than 13, because gathering data on kids younger than that is what got YouTube into trouble. Or did you think that Google was just making all of these changes out of the goodness of their heart? How adorable. Not all family vloggers are upset about this, actually. I meant to look up and I'm too tired to do it now. I'm sorry. The I want to say AB family.
The AB family.
Anyway, they're very happy about the changes.
We are actually celebrating what happened. Obviously, we're not celebrating the lawsuit.
Yeah, no, we're not celebrating the lawsuit, and I understand that a lot of people will be out of a job, and a lot of people have to figure out what they're going to do. But really, this is all for good because it protects children. It really does.
So that's great. You know, they're still like a kid-focused channel. It's older kids at least, but you know, they're still pretty young. It still makes me personally uncomfortable. And they have like a house tour where they're showing off their huge house and all their wealth. So that's cool. I guess MTV Cribs never really died, did it? It just moved to YouTube and now it's just, you know, YouTubers doing their home tours. Chris Pontius is literally the only good home tour ever.
So this is the toilet.
Also a good one. Anyway, that's why I don't watch family vlogging. You know, I'm sure that some of you agree with me. I'm sure that others do watch some family channels. And I would say that if you still really like that content and still want to watch it, I think there are like a couple of rules that you can follow that will drastically reduce the chance that you are watching and supporting a channel that is like potentially exploitative. Number one, avoid any channel that does daily vlogs. And even I think if they're posting like several times a week, just imagine a kid being on camera every single day, several times a week, even if they're telling their parents, yeah, it's great. This is something that I mentioned in the Ellen Fisher video. You know, sometimes kids say yes because they want to please you, right? It might not be something that they actually want to do. So yeah, any sort of daily vlogging I think is just inherently like red flag bad. And then the second one would be to avoid any family channels that look like they rely on the family aspect, right? Like if you would stop watching a channel if the kids weren't in the videos anymore, that's a pretty huge red flag. And I thought of a third one while editing. Avoid channels that post obviously embarrassing content or content that would very likely be embarrassing for the kid as they get older. Breastfeeding comes to mind. I know we are trying to reverse the stigma regarding nursing, but I think that that's for like when you're in your normal everyday life, you know, out and about, and just not feeling the need to cover up, right? I don't think that this applies to like breastfeeding in a video with hundreds of thousands or even millions of views. You're kind of just asking for your kid to be picked on. So that's it. I hope that's what you guys wanted. I hope that was enjoyable. And yeah, once again, you know, I'm definitely coming from the other end of the spectrum where I don't share like anything about my kids. I mean, that's not true. I talk about kind of what they eat and I've shared my birth story and stuff like that. Like that one mother in her amazing quote, you know, she talks about in her article, sharing a story about her kid. You know, when her kid loses a friend, the friend just stopped talking to her for some reason. And she thought that was just appropriate to share with the world. I don't know, man. I think most people can't imagine doing something like that. I would think, right? I mean, it's one thing to talk about it with your friends, you know, and with other parents, you know, obviously we share things about our kids with other adults in our lives, but to just write about it and put it out there into the world, I don't think that's something most of us would feel comfortable doing. And look, you know, saying that she's just going to keep doing this, fine, but I think she has to recognize that there's a good chance that her kid is just going to stop telling her stuff. That's what I would do. If I had a parent who was just like, no, I'm just going to keep writing about you because it's what I need. Well, okay, I'm just not going to tell you anything about my life ever again. And we're going to have a real sad, stilted relationship. Man, that makes me so sad. I can't imagine having a parent like that. I get it on some level, you know, just this, our kids are just the most amazing things to us. So of course we want to share it with everyone, you know. When I have this like amazingly cute photo of one of my kids, like there is part of me that's like, everyone needs to see how cute my kid is. But, you know, it's a small part and it's easily overridden by like, don't do that though. Don't do it maybe. But yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe. That would be cool. Support the channel. Okay. Patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. And I will have a new video hopefully soon. I've done it before. I'm sure I'll do it again. There's one channel, man. It's a movie review channel, that's all I'll say. And I was such a fan. It was like, I want to say a year, maybe even a year and a half ago. I just stumbled upon something and was like, oh, what? No, what? No. And that was it. And it's a bummer, man, but principles and all that.